Today on the show, Radical Ones, we continue Sword and Sorcery Summer with 1984's The NeverEnding Story.
I'm a luck dragon. My name is Falkor.
It's time to get radical.
Something really special that I've been promising to show you.
What would you do to get him?
Grab him and take him. Take him. Like that.
Hey, look! A Dungeons and Dragons ride!
Yes! Let this be our final battle!
I have my eyes, I have my cunning, and now I have strength.
A never-ending adventure new for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Zelda!
You must find a champion, bold of heart, and pure in spirit.
Champion? What champion?
Welcome back, Radical Ones, to another episode of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast. As always, I am your host, Radical Ryan Hunter, here with Rob, the movie geek, for another one of our Sword and Sorcery Summer movies.
Yes, hello everyone.
So, Rob, we made the list. We keep going back to the list. The original idea, NeverEnding Story, was one of your choice picks. Now, this is one of those movies that it was going to probably be on the list.
I'm trying to think, was there one sword in this movie at all? I don't think there was.
You know?
There was a lot of sorcery going on, but I don't know if they had a sword in this one. Maybe he had a sword in the second. Didn't Atreyu have a sword in the second? Or he was still on the bow and arrow?
You know what I thought of? The only thing that's close to his sword is Atreyu's rock that he held up when he was about to be attacked by the
the little blade he found. Yes, the shard of rock. Yes.
So true, no swords, but yes, the sorcery continues.
Yes, for sure.
This is, of course, the 1985, I would say cult classic, right, Rob? I mean, at this point. Or is it just a classic?
I did it bomb. I did not do that research. I don't think it was rejected when it came out in reception, but yes, there are definitely people who love this movie underground, so it's definitely a classic.
So it's a domestic, they made 60 million, and then in the US it was 25 to 27 million. So I'm sure, yeah, this did well enough to spawn sequels, so I always say that's a good sign, right? It's described as a boy who needs a friend, finds a world that needs a hero in a land beyond imagination. That is like the easiest way to sum up this movie.
This nerd who is a loner doesn't know how to... No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I loved Bastion's sense of imagination. If only I had the ability to escape into a book that deep. I'm too logic in my head for me to really just enjoy what I'm reading because I'm too concentrated on reading. While that does not make sense, it's literally what's happening. I'm too focused on reading the words. I cannot just escape into this. And we'll talk about his reactions throughout the movie because I was getting annoyed, but I don't know if it was due out of jealousy or envy. But I was just like, how is he able to do this and read? I just don't get it. But this is coming from someone who isn't a big reader. So, Ryan, do you like to read? Do you read often?
It's so funny. I had this queued up. I know the answer, Rob, but are you a reader?
Oh, okay.
But you know what? You did read that Hocus Pocus 2 novel. I got to give you that.
But when was the last? Okay, so I've done a couple audiobooks, but I've never gotten to this habit of, what are you reading now? That's just not my jam. I haven't really been given that reading bug. But do you read a lot?
Absolutely not. I cannot concentrate, Rob, anymore.
That's so sad for us. This is why we get words wrong, because we don't read.
I'll tell you what, when I was younger, and I think we talked about this on brunch, it happened to be I would read things that were of my passion, right? So I would never gonna read the classics. I would be reading Buffy, Charmed. Honestly, if it had to do something with like a Dark Shadow, something I had to be invested in to get me to read, but I would love to do it. I have not had that attention span, and I would say probably 10 years.
I read a little bit of Goosebumps, and I did my Clue Choose Your Own Adventure mysteries.
Ooh.
I even read novels that came from movies, movies to novel.
Yes.
Sometimes I would do those, but it wasn't out of habit. Again, it was really very specific on what I wanted to read. There are some books that I read because of like book reports and
yes.
Again, I would do audiobooks here and there. The one time that I like literally picked up a book and was like, I'm reading this is The Hunger Games. And that was just a service for my partner that I had at the time. It was a birthday gift for him because the movie was going to come out that same year. And so for his birthday, I bought the Hunger Games book and I gave it to him. And then I said, here's your second present. And it was the Hunger Games book. And he was super confused. And I go, this copy is mine. I am going to read it with you. And we are going to read this book before we watch the movie. And so he knows that I'm not a big reader. So I did this for him because he always wanted to like read together or at least talk about books. And I had never experienced reading a book before the movie because that fandom of like, it wasn't in the book. How dare you? And yes, blasphemy. Yep. I wanted to know what that felt like. So I chose Hunger Games as a prototype and I read the book before the movie and I did notice some differences. And that was one example where I feel the movie was better than the book. They had some interesting storylines that I wish that I had seen how they would have executed it on screen. And the book was more, like bloodier and with the kills and stuff rather than what we saw. But we're not talking about Hunger Games, we're talking about NeverEnding Story, but that would be a clear example of how I like read something, but I'm not a reader. So like this boy was in it and I tried to figure him out, but it was so difficult to see how he was able to do that.
Bastian is Belle from Beauty and the Beast. He loves a good book. He will rob it from a store to get to the good book. But you know what? You actually just made me think of those junior novelizations. I remember, we just had the Jurassic Park anniversary. Jurassic Park, The Lost World was coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna read what's gonna happen in this movie. Didn't finish it, but it was very different from what was even put in the film. So sometimes you get that fun with those books. So there might be something in it for you if you're a reader to find the differences.
What is the secret of this enchanted book? What wonders are hidden within its pages? What magical spell does it cast on all who read it? What is the secret of the never-ending story?
But that's impossible!
Will enter a world where a young boy's imagination becomes a vivid reality. The world of Atreyu and Artax, the Rockbiter, and a good and kind gnome. A world that is vast and eternal, treacherous and dazzling, unforgettable and free. Yeah! For anyone who's ever made a wish, believed in a fantasy, or had a dream, this is the NeverEnding Story.
Lately, we've been having funny little things happening where we mentioned that David watched a different version of Legend that had no singing in it, and he confessed to me after that he had no idea what was going on. So I did a Google search the other day for the NeverEnding Story because I'm like, you know what? Let me see if it's free somewhere. Save a little money. A lot of times we're renting the things that we're
I had
reviewing.
to rent today's movie. I unfortunately don't own this, and I should, but but I don't.
Or you could have did what I did, Rob. I ended up having to rent it because I start the movie, right? And it's a completely blank title screen with just font on it. And I'm like, okay, I don't remember this. It's really boring. Not boring, but nothing. Uneventful. There's no NeverEnding Story song going on here.
Yeah.
And then cut to the bookstore with Bastian. The book is revealed and the title is like, and I'm like, oh my God, I must be watching the German version.
Okay.
So I rented it, but it was free online somewhere. It is the German version, and I'm like, where's the theme song? Spoiler, it's not in it.
Oh, to be in Germany watching that, yeah. Hopefully they heard this song and was like, "This is so gay." Like, what is this? No, I don't think that would happen. But we're on the subject of the song. This is what I wrote. I said, all you have to do is listen to the song. Bam, movie over. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed this film. Honestly, 5 stars, Rotten Tomatoes. Like, that's all you need is this song. This song just is out of all the fantasy movies that we watched so far, and just from that era, like
right.
They all have these epic, triumphant, and mystical movie scores, and it's just so whimsical. You got the flutes and all of that, stuff just playing, and then this movie comes out with this banger out of nowhere. Let's just give them a title sequence song based on the title, and it's like no one asked for this, and it just blows the rest of them away. For like, I'm
Honestly.
sorry. This song, I swear, is club material. Like, you could play this at the nightclub and you will have everybody on the floor.
Isn't it amazing that now there's a new generation that only knows it as Dustin singing on Stranger Things? And it's
right. But
it's
wasn't
crazy.
that a moment? Wasn't that
my God, yes.
moment? I like the hype that song gave, like when it was introduced, because she was just like, you got to do it. Are you going to do it? And then he was like, no, I don't want to do it. And then all of a sudden he sings it. I was like, you are blowing my childhood right now. Please do not. And then this girl got into it with the arm.
So good.
The armchair, and I was living that moment. It was one of those things where it's like, I'm not even going to spoil it. Just finish the freaking season so you can see the magic in this season finale. That's a moment, and it's because of this song and because of this movie. So good.
So this is the question I had for you. Perfect setup. You did it beautifully, Rob. Is this movie as big as it is because of the song? Or is it they're both so amazing that they just boosted each other up to this thing that you'll never happen again?
I wouldn't say the song is the sole reason. I think that this movie has something specific and unique. I don't know. I think other people may say that this is just one in a million, but for me, I feel the NeverEnding Story is so specific in the way that it talks about magic, the storytelling, the message, how dark it is without going there. It pushed boundaries for me and just sort of went to a line that some of these other movies, wouldn't cross.
True.
I mean, literally from the beginning, you're watching a kid get bullied. I mean, that's not something to uplift you or give you any kind of happier feelings as you're watching this kid's fantasy movie. Like, I wouldn't even say this movie's depressing, but even the death of Artax comes within the first 30 minutes of the book. And I didn't know it came so early. I thought that we had a lot of time with these two before that happened. And it just came out of nowhere. I was like, yep, we're just going to take the horse out. And I just think that a lot of other fantasy movies keeps you uplifted, and this movie needed you to hit rock bottom so you can understand what it's like to receive hope and believe in yourself. You had to be drugged down to the grit like crumbs and then lift yourself up. That's how I took it watching this again.
You're right. It's the heavy hitters of the bullying, bam, to your father who has no understanding how to cope with this child or won't.
That was a very awkward conversation.
Oh my God. I mean, it does show that I guarantee that conversation happened around a million kids' childhood tables too. So it's so like real that the father, I took it as the father doesn't know how to deal with after the mother and how to like even give comfort to this child. He's very stoic or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Mr. Orange Juice and a raw egg.
That's Major Dad, isn't he? Isn't that Major Dad?
He's one tough Marine. She's a liberal-minded reporter and mother of 3. They're not sure whether to make love or war.
Wasn't too bad.
So the kids will settle the score.
Hey, what you got there?
It's called tank commander.
That's an M60 tank. We got those at work.
Want Sophie?
Might be a little bit of an unfair advantage.
Gerald McRaney is Major Dad.
You're dead. I win.
Coming Mondays this fall.
Ready for CBS.
I know him more on This Is Us. He played the doctor that gave birth to the triplets or the twins. That's where I remember him from. I think that's the same actor. But yeah, that father conversation, it felt very like 70s after school special where they have like so much dead space in between each sentence and you're just looking at emotion. And yes, you're right. Like he had no idea what to say to this kid. And it also was just like, keep your feet on the ground, kid. No more fantasy. I was like, what was he actually doing that was so horrible that he couldn't like escape into a book or imagine and whatever?
Exactly.
Like, it was just a very weird conversation, but yes, it was straight to the point and it gave you a base of his journey is that he has to stay realistic. He can't be skipping school. He can't, like basically he was telling him to stop being a nerd so you don't get picked on is what he was really saying.
This Bastian, who, by the way, how many out there, radical ones, thought this kid was named Sebastian? I guarantee you, one of you out there is saying this kid's name was Sebastian, but I always remember this Bastian.
So, is it Bastian or Bastian? Because Homegirl had an accent to it. She added that extra zing. She was Bastian.
Bastian.
It's a
I don't know.
I found out her 2 teeth got knocked out right before this, and they fitted her with 2 front teeth.
Good for them. Show must go on. She looked great.
I call her Rob. Did you think she looked like Thora Birch or whatever her name is from Hocus Pocus?
I don't know. I don't know if I see it.
As a kid, I swear to God, I don't know how I thought they were sisters or related somehow.
No, she was a gem. I wish she was in it more. Yeah, so for me, I think that NeverEnding Story is just one of those movies that just like, I don't know, there's just something about it that adults really can relate to just as much as kids. It just gives you sort of that, I get Lost Boys vibes from this. I don't know why.
Okay, yes.
I don't know why. Like, I just imagine it having like a continued like rock soundtrack or something, like a soft rock sort of like soundtrack, and it's just like so gritty. And yeah, that's why I really enjoy it. But to me, this movie always stands out from the way it tells its story, because I think there was a part in the movie, I think at the end when she's describing, Bastian being this earthling, and he's like, yeah, he's been following you this whole time. And there are people out there who are also following you. And I'm like, this woman knows about me watching the movie.
Yeah.
They're watching his adventure at the same time. I'm like, I don't remember.
So smart.
I don't remember that at all. That connection.
No, I don't either.
I thought that was brilliant. Brilliant.
And it's so funny because, this has, from researching this movie this week, it seems that the common thing here is the author hated it so much that he did a lawsuit to stop the movie, wanted his name taken out of it because of what they did to his book. As a matter of fact, one of the things that really stood out to him was the breasts on the...
Oh, yeah, I noticed them. They also had nipples for days. A pump was taken to those to make them bigger because those, yes.
So that he definitely took offense with those breasts, right? His book, so it's 400 pages long, right? They condensed this movie quite a bit. But to me, it's beautiful. The people who made this film, I feel like, are from the heart. Mm-hmm. Because there are moments of pure, like you're saying, amazingness. And I don't want to say this is just because of a childhood lens, because even going back to this, Rob, I was just like, wow, this is so deep. Oh my God, this is depression. This is this. This is like,
yeah, very good. So, the shopkeeper. This was the most confusing part of this movie for me because it seemed that this kid was set up or that there was some sort of destiny involved. Maybe there was no control. He was meant to be bullied, go into the store, steal the book, yada, yada. And he had a smile on his face as if he knew he was going to take it. Or, you know, when you bait a child to be like, don't you touch that. And that's when they'll do it. You know, he was just like, this isn't a safe book for you. You know, this one's not. And it's just funny how he was like, I hate children, get out. And he was baiting him. So I didn't understand sort of his involvement. I mean, was that part in the book too? Because he started from the beginning of the book and it started with the adventure, but was the shopkeeper and the bully part of the book too? I don't know if it changed, but
I almost took that as he was in the same position as him and you almost inherit this book. But I mean, that was always my headcanon. I could be totally off base of what this was. Almost like you become the page master. No, I don't know. You become the one who gifts this to the next geeky kid who's drawing unicorns in his book to give them this adventure. So yeah, it's almost like you're baited into it, like goosebumps I got almost.
Yeah, I always thought that this shopkeeper was Wilford Bromley, Mr. Diabetes.
Oh
I honestly thought they were the same guy.
I could see it, honestly, that mustache.
Yeah.
Mr. Diabetes.
I'm Wilford Brimley, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about diabetes.
But yeah, I was very curious if he could feel him coming in and just decided to kind of set him up for this book. And also, if somebody else was reading the NeverEnding Story, would they have the same outcome? You know, would it have taken the person reading the book like ages to read it? You know, would they notice that there's a pause and he stopped reading? Like, he was in a position, Bastian, to like read the book from beginning to end. And so,
which is, I mean, a little what? That was crazy, the time that took.
And had this movie like been directed by someone today or someone that made this PG-13, the deleted scene at the end credits would have been his ass getting his butt whooped because he was out all night and didn't say a word. Like, we never got any follow-up on how he was able to walk into that house trouble-free. I mean, he not only skipped school, like, he could have they could have easily called the cops and been like, my child has been snatched. No one saw him for that whole day.
Definitely, right? That's what I would have thought.
It's the next day and he's riding on a dragon. Like, I just am like, what was the father doing this whole time? He was probably worried so much about this kid. But I just wonder if somebody would have gotten, like, if the NeverEnding Story would have been different if it was read by someone else, you know? Like the screaming, you know, when they noticed him screaming and yelling.
Oh, that, I just have to mention that, speaking of the school, how is it that was a scream? First off, it came out of nowhere. I actually laughed at first, but then I said, how is it that the people in the book heard it? Because let me tell you, your schoolmates taking that math test, and they're probably on to like 7th period right now, had to have heard that scream.
It was pretty loud, but I mean, that school probably is huge, and it is an attic space. The acoustics, I'm sure, is big, but I don't know, it could just be in a far part of the school that nobody goes near. The fact that he had access to it is just so dangerous. But I'd never known a school to have an attic space either. That was also really interesting.
That was really a weird decision. Yeah, it would look like an attic, like you were saying, an attic. But to your question, Rob, I do think that's what happens. Each person gets their own, almost maybe what they need. Which, by the way, it says Bastian Balthazar Buck is the name in the.
Oh yeah, they established that in part 2, I think.
I think that's what it is. He needed, I feel, to mourn his mother in a way, and then get that, I have a perfect name, which, Rob, did you know that all these years what he screamed out at the end?
Never. I was gonna bring that up at the very end. So I got a lot of rumors that the name he screamed was Moonshine. But the way he screamed it, I heard 3 syllables. So I don't know if that was the name, but that is the closest that I've gotten to figuring out what he said. And I don't know if they really wanted to establish an official name for her because of the idea that other people could read this and come up with their own name, and not have it be so locked down onto what this little kid wanted to say. But I don't know, maybe they're in the book, did they give her a name?
So it's Moonchild.
Moonchild. Oh my God. It's a New Yorker in him. Can you... You just gave the Empress this New York Boston name. Moonchild.
It's Moonchild. She's from Brooklyn. But you're right, because all these years, I used to always say, I should have put closed captionings on, I guess.
No, but if you do, it just says something screaming. Yeah. It just says something screaming, like scream intensely or something. That's all he says. Because the transcriber can't make out what he's saying, so they can't put a caption there. They just have to say, oh, he just screamed intensely, because I can't make out what he was saying.
Insane scream. So Moonchild. So this leads me to say, and it says the name of his mother in things. So his mother was a hippie.
Duh.
But that's why Father's all like, now he became a businessman or something. Mm-hmm. Is that what happened to Moonchild?
Could be. Somebody had to be the grown-up.
Yeah. Okay, so when you think of this movie, let's get it over with. What are the things you think of besides Falkor, everyone's childhood trauma?
I was so jealous of this boy. Everybody wanted the Lug Dragon in their lives. Yeah. Who like surprisingly looked like the shopkeeper a little bit.
I like children.
For breakfast?
Never. I'm a luck dragon. My name is Falkor.
And my name is
Atreyu. And you're on a quest.
How'd you know that?
You were unconscious. And you talked in your sleep.
I love that it's Alan Oppenheimer who is the voice of Skeletor, Man-at-Arms.
Oh, really?
And various other characters in He-Man.
Oh, nice. I did not know that.
You furry, flea-bitten fool! I'll cover my throne with your hide!
So he did this voice, Rob. He did Gmork, the wolf thing. Gmork.
Oh, Gmork, yeah.
Gmork.
Yeah, Gmork.
Who are you, really?
I am the servant of the power behind the nothing. I was sent to kill the only one who could have stopped the nothing. I lost him in the swamps of sadness. His name was Atreyu.
The Rock. I was calling the Rock Chewer, Chewer Biter.
Yeah.
Delicious looking limestone rock. Nice bouquet. Must be a real vintage year.
And the narrator. So he did all of those voices in this movie. And it's amazing because I thought I've heard so many nuances in his voice. And I'll hear like a Man-at-Arms or something. But the fact that he was able to do all of these characters and honestly sound different is just a feat in its own, I think.
That's awesome. So for me, if I were to think about this movie, I do think of Atreyu. I mean, a little bit of a childhood crush when I was younger. But no, I think our two travelers are the snail guy and the bat guy.
Oh my God.
They stand out to me all the time when thinking about this movie because they're just so unique characters that are so mismatched, but yet they feel like they're like best buddies. Like you just got this refined dude in a suit and a top hat riding a snail. It doesn't go together, but yet it works so much.
And the Night Hob is that
Night Hob.
troll-like character. You're right, but the fact that he looks so wicked kid, but he's not.
He's the nicest thing. He reminded me of Trickster a little bit, though, from Brain Scan. Many people may not know who he looks like.
Actually,
look up the Trickster. There's just a little similarity that I enjoyed from that. But I think about those two characters, and I also think about the gates, the trials, the
nipples.
Yeah, I think about that hardcore scene where he is trying to get past and he doesn't want to get shot with the lasers, and he made it. Like, that moment will forever live in my brain. So those specifically stand out to me when thinking about NeverEnding Story. What about you?
To me, I think I blocked this out, but it's the whole when Atreyu's horse, and what is the horse's name?
Artax.
I knew it. Artax, thank you, Artax.
Artax, you're sinking! Come on, turn around! You have to now! Come on! Artax! Fight against the sadness, Artax! Artax, please. You're letting the sadness of the swamps get to you. You have to try. You have to care. For me. You're my friend. I love you. Artax! Stupid horse! You gotta move or you'll die! Move, please! I won't give up! Don't quit! Artax!
When that scene happened, I actually was bawling so much. I couldn't believe how much I cried in that part.
This last rewatch, or are you talking about
This
before?
rewatch, like,
Oh, yeah.
and then it honestly, when he says "You're my friend and I love you," I cried so hard.
So, I want to say that I brought this up on Movie Geek and Proud, and no, I mean, just the significance of this scene is insane when you grow up. Like, it's just one of those things where you're like, things you didn't know now that you're an adult, and you're watching this, and not only does it hit harder because you've lived and you understand emotion, but also you have more of an understanding of why it happened, because it's like the horse is sinking, but he isn't. Like, what's the difference? What's happening here? And it's the swamp of sadness, and basically the moment you give up hope is when you start sinking. And the idea that this horse has given up, that is what was triggering for me, and it wasn't him sinking. It was just the idea that you could not do anything for this horse to continue. And like I said, they were barely in the swamp as it is, and there wasn't really anything else going on to trip up the horse that way. Was he just lazy? Was he just like, I can't, like, I'm done? You know, like, I didn't really sense that anything triggered him. It was just one of those things. So my question to you, in addition, because I didn't think about this before, was, do you think the swamp of sadness, like, drains you? Or does it only activate if you yourself give up hope? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to put a whole bunch of sadness on you and you have to overcome it. And if you're not strong enough. So I don't know if the swamp was doing it to the horse or was the horse doing it to himself.
So I looked up what happens in the book.
Okay.
The horse actually speaks in the book.
Oh, okay.
It's because of the swamp. And the only reason Atreyu is protected is because he's wearing the amulet.
Orin, yes. The Orin. That makes so much sense now. Wow.
I never understood that either as a kid. I never put two and two together, ever.
Had no chance. Had no chance. That is wild. Okay, so with that being said, yes, definitely cried when I watched. And usually anytime I do watch this scene, it's going to happen because Atreyu acted the shit out of this scene. Those screams and that pleading, and he's just like, don't give up. I'm like...
Even the stupid horse, like at the end, the frustration of like, stupid horse, listen to me.
He had me. And just the camera just literally focusing on his face of him just yelling, those tears down his eyes, like, I was done. And I don't care what I'm doing. If I'm like on my phone, like on my computer, whatever the case, if that scene is on, I will usually end up stop what I'm doing because I'm just so mesmerized by that scene. It's a very heavy scene to watch.
I'm crying. I feel like crying right now thinking about it.
It's just a well executed scene. It's so good. And here's the other thing too. Would you have preferred, well, not to say preferred, if Artax had lived, we never would have gotten Falkor. So what do you think about sort of that transition? It's not like we're glad Artax got out of the way to make room for Falkor. But how else were we supposed to, because they had to travel like 100 million miles or whatever it was, 10,000 miles.
Yeah, and he flew him 9,000
or something. Yeah, like him and the horse could never have done that. So
Artax, we see that he's alive at the end, and they're riding off into the sunset, so it's okay. But honestly, I don't know if I would want to go through that trauma, because I feel like I'm scarred now as an adult, worse than I was as a kid. By the way, the horse tells him, "Let me die. Like, I have no hope. Just let me go. I feel so sad. I'm so depressed."
All of those thoughts were going in my head as that horse was sinking. I swear to you, I can just imagine. Though that's why it just hit hard, because like, how do you that's really difficult.
But you're right. It opens up the friendship and the magical luck dragon, who has become a childhood, I feel like, a staple of any kid who grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Falkor.
Mm-hmm. Love me some Falkor. Falkor is great. What did you think of the acting overall in this? Did you feel it was decent enough? Has it aged?
The voice acting, with the dubbing, with the German actors, now that I realize is German actors, with the snail guy.
Yeah.
And the night hob, that threw me, because the mouths don't line up, and oh my god, the snail guy's voice doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. But the kids, I am blown away. Like you said, that scene alone, I feel like Atreyu's actor Noah Hathaway should have gotten something for that. And even Bastian's, the tears that he had, but the childlike empress in her 2 scenes, I think these child actors are like standouts of the 80s. And this girl was not even an actress. This is the only role she did. She was a dancer.
Yeah.
Her doing those tears and please, Bastian. Like, I don't know. I was moved. Like, I believed these characters.
He doesn't understand that he's the one who has the power to stop it. He simply can't imagine that one little boy could be that important.
Is it really me? Maybe he doesn't know what he has to do! What do I have to do?
He has to give me a new name. He's already chosen it. He just has to call it out.
But it's only a story. It's not real. It's only a story.
There was something about Bastian, though, that was kind of annoying. I know that he really needed to give a lot for us viewers because he was by himself, just talking to it. Just, I don't know. Like, again, when what was the turtle's name?
Mora
something. Like, so apparently her face was that.
Oh, that's the scream.
That's so apparently I don't know how this turtle's face was described in the book. But Morla, yeah. I don't understand how in written description would cause you to yell like that. So unless he is visually seeing it, or he really has that big of an imagination, God help me, because I did not understand that at all. Like, I would constitute maybe a jump scare yell, but this man screamed for his life as if he was about to get eaten. I was like, there's no way you can conjure up that emotion from a book. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Child.
It was for me, that was the cheesiest thing. So I get the point, right? We needed this child to be here. And then he's like, that's impossible. They couldn't have heard me. And I'm just like, oh my God, this child. He is a diva. He is a straight diva. What did I write? Hold on. Let me find it. Oh my God, this kid.
Bastian is another word for hustler.
Oh my God. So I said, first they can hear him and then they can see you. And what did he do when he saw himself in the mirror? He threw the book.
Yeah.
He was like, how dare you? And he was like, no.
But you're right. He's
This
screaming.
is going too far. I was like, what are you? But what did he do? His dumbass still read the book. I'd have been like, this is some voodoo shit. I'm not getting trapped into this crap. I'm done reading. He threw the book as if it did something to him. I was like, you are such a diva. Spain can think it's about him.
Why was it so hard for him to believe at that point? Because I think even us as kids would have read a book, and when she's like, say a name, I'm sure every kid would have just thought of a name in their head and said it anyway, just to like be part of whatever. But he literally was saying, I can't eat this all because I'm on a journey, but yet he can't scream Moonchild at the end. I mean, I know it's dramatic, but
yeah, they really had to play up the stakes, right? Like, he waited to the very last minute so that everyone can feel the pain of death before he gets the courage to save the world, the little asshole. I was like, no, because he was like, no, my dad said I have to keep my feet on the ground. I'm like, is he gonna beat you or something if you disobey
Maybe
him?
that's the secret.
He was so adamant about like not breaking the rules when he literally just skipped school for the day. Like, clearly you don't follow all the rules entirely, but this is the one rule where you're like, I gotta keep my feet on the ground. My dad said so. I'm not calling out the name.
Which is funny because he literally in the second one, and it's mentioned in this, did you go to swim class? Like, are you going off that diving board? Are you keeping your feet on the ground then? But you're right. Oh my God, the rock chewer, when it's all over, and that whole thing about his hands, they're so big, but they couldn't do.
That was sad too. I didn't really get the full stint of that scene until I rewatched it this time. I had to play it back, I think 3 times to really understand what I was supposed to hear. And yeah, he was just, it's like one of those moments where you're just in shock. Like, he just had a traumatic event happen to him, and I actually didn't even realize he was talking about those two being gone. Yeah, he basically was just like, I have these big, strong hands. I've always thought they were great, and it still wasn't enough to keep my friends. And then he was like, the nothing will be here in 5 minutes. Just go, because I'm done.
They look like big, good, strong hands, don't they? I always thought that's what they were. Oh, my little friends. The little man with his racing snail. The nighthawk. Even the stupid bat. I couldn't hold on to them. The nothing pulled them right out of my hands. I failed.
No, you didn't fail. I'm the one who failed. I was the one chosen to stop the nothing.
And then he cries, and that's it. We just see him cry, and they go to the next scene. Like, ooh, so good.
If you want to show a child what being an adult is like, I think this is it. This sadness.
The rock biter was like, take me, Lord. Take me. I don't want to be here. It should be me. Just take me now.
That sleeping bat, I think, is so freaking adorable. I would be sad over that bat dying too, and that racing snail.
Yeah. Looked like Bartok. So Bartok.
The German director, Rob, was apparently very strict with all of the actors, including, it didn't matter if you were a child. So they were filming in Germany, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And because they weren't in the States, and whatever the case is, the actor, especially Noah Hathaway, who plays Atreyu, was forced to do scenes over and over and over and over, to the point of, even if it was when he was soaking in the rain or whatever, he had to do that scene over and over and over to the point of breaking. Before even starting, Rob, he ended up having to have a huge surgery and has titanium things in his back just from horse training.
Oh.
And then almost lost an eye during the fight scene versus the Gmork, as one of the claws on the puppet poked him in the face. And also, the robot was so heavy that he lost breath as he hit the ground. And this continues that every minute he was injured, sick, because he was left out in the cold and everything. Like, this is a nightmare.
Do you think the movie paid for like his medical bills or something? I wonder if he had to sign a contract saying like, we're not liable for anything. That sucks.
And do it again. I don't care if you're dying.
Well, you know, I guess that really explains why part 2 had literally no one from the first one do this again. You are not traumatizing me again. I will not be put through labor with no health benefits. Like, they were like, screw this franchise. You can get some other saps to fall in line with your never-ending story. Yeah.
That movie, that I never liked that childlike empress in that with the curly hair. She did not give it to me. No, those were like generic.
That was multiverse sequels right there with the Bruce Wayne of NeverEnding Story. They had a different Batman in every single NeverEnding Story.
You're right. And Jonathan Brandis, of course, was in the second one, but that's all I remember. And as I was watching like a movie reminding me, I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is the one where he becomes like an ass. And like, I think he kills Atreyu. And then that's what I remember. Did these wishes, and then he was forgetting what the hell was happening, but he was scared of the heights or...
Yeah. Atreyu got a different ethnicity and skin color, so they made him more authentic to his, background. Yeah, there was a lot of changes. I have not seen that movie in so long. It's been a minute. So some of the other things that I noticed that I wanted to point out, I'm sure you caught this. First of all, I thought Gmork was very impressive as a visual villain, because the nothing was obviously our core, but like that narration, that visual representation, his bitch is what I call him. He's a bitch to the nothing. He's like, I am his servant and I will carry out and yada yada. And
those eyes, they expressed a lot when they would open and close.
It was good puppetry. I loved all of that. I'm surprised he was taken out so easily. He's mostly bark, apparently, because
yeah, that was honestly, he looked like he just died.
He got
he literally just went
quick. Yeah.
But why is Fantasia dying then?
Because people have begun to lose their hopes and forget their dreams. So the nothing grows stronger.
What is the nothing?
It's the emptiness that's left. It is like a despair destroying this world. And I have been trying to help it.
But why?
Because people who have no hopes are easy to control. And whoever has the control has the power.
Also, did you hear the rock biter? He stuck around and was like, I'll catch up with you guys in a moment. I'm going to eat some of these gourmet...
Now I see why you picked this camp.
Limestone rocks, also mentioned in Return to Oz. Limestone rocks, that's a thing now.
And what is this? Yeah, I feel like I don't know if I'm blurring them because of the childhood things, but I feel like Return to Oz and this movie would be like perfect together.
Well, no, let's expand. We've got a cinematic universe going on here, because guess who else shows up? Our Ravel from Willow. I had no idea the minute
Until
I heard the
saw
voice.
the name.
Though, no, the voice. As soon as I heard the voice, I'm like, that's Ravel from Willow. Wow.
It has to hurt to heal. No, what did she say? It has to hurt to heal?
Yeah. She was like, would you be quiet? I just want to touch the... Oh, God.
Witch again, right?
She was a treat. So yeah, I mean, these actors again just keep hopping from one to another. And I swear to you, these fantasy movies in the 80s was like the WB. Like one actor travels on to every single WB show and plays a part. Like you can find them everywhere.
Passed around them all. Yep, make the rounds.
Also, I thought this was very daring too, and I'm surprised they didn't like go more into this, because especially in the 80s when you got like a lot of revolt and mutinies and strikes and marches and things, in the world of politics you never reveal that your leader is ill or unfit to rule. When you turn to someone to save an entire nation and you stand up there and you say, oh, she's sick, she has no way of helping any of us, we're doomed. I am so shocked that Fantasia did not turn into chaos after that. But
True.
but I mean, like, do we want that type of transparency? You know, I don't think the world is really equipped to hear some truth like that. So you are forcing governments to lie all the time because you can't handle the truth. This dude literally stood up and was like, sorry about it. Y'all all came here for nothing. She is sick and she's going to die.
That dude. And I totally, for some reason, I thought he was in a Star Trek movie for some reason. Like, I used to equate that actor in the beginning.
I know what you're talking about.
In that crowd, which, by the way, this was insane. Okay, so from what I remember, it was E.T., Yoda, Mickey Mouse, Chewbacca, C-3PO, Ewoks, and Gumby.
You saw all of them.
I read this, right? So then I went back to the scene and I said, I still don't see this. I went to YouTube and I typed this in, like the who was in it, and they literally had to zoom in this close, magnify it. But sure enough, there's a person in a Gumby costume.
Wow.
Sure enough, there's E.T., there's a Mickey Mouse. I mean, it's crazy.
I did not know that. Help me out here, because this is the one thing that didn't make the movie perfect, but maybe it can if you can explain it to me. From my understanding, it seemed that Atreyu literally had to go out on a horse with no weapons to travel literally to the ends of the earth, only to be told that he needs to go all the way back to the beginning to give this girl a name that he was unable to give. What was the point of Atreyu? I just don't, like, can you imagine being told you need to go all the way down this road so that someone can tell you to go all the way back to where you started and pray to God that the earthling listening gives her a name? Like, Atreyu didn't get shit out of this. And he literally traveled for what?
I'm sorry, but your princess is another castle, Mario.
I don't understand sort of the roadmap into how he needed to. So where the Empress was at the end, that's where he was in the beginning, right? I mean, they basically just told him to go back where you came from.
And this time, thank God, he got to fly in space, basically, and come across the castle that just happened to be on an asteroid piece of planet left. Yeah.
The answer came from inside of the house. You did not have to go anywhere. I just thought this was such crap that he needed to do this. Now, look, I guess people love the journey, but like, if I find out at the end of the book that the answer was in the beginning, like, Jesus.
So that's that Wizard of Oz thing, right? Like, you had the answer all along. You could have clicked those heels. Like, yeah, what
and
is
I would have punched the shit out of him hearing that. I was like, you telling me this whole time? The whole time?
Yeah, so besides when he came across Gmork, I guess they could technically say you didn't need weapons, but had he not gotten Falkor and this and that, he would have had to go on that journey on foot. Yes, so you're right. I don't know what. So is it because Bastian has to see himself in Atreyu?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it.
Guess?
I get it. You know, I mostly joke on here. It's just coming from a different perspective, but at the same time, it's like, yes, Bastian needed to go through this epic journey of adventure and wonder and also of confidence and believing in himself and hope and all of that in order for him to gain the courage to do what he needed to do. And I guess without context, it would sound really silly to ask the reader to just say a name out loud. I would have done it just for fun. But
yeah, put your name here.
Yeah. Put your name here. Yeah, NeverEnding Story could have been Mad Libs, and we would have just like the world would not have ended. Nothing would have been whatever. No, but at the end of the day, I love NeverEnding Story so much, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a child at heart, but I can still watch this as a 40-year-old and still understand its reasoning, its roots, it's just epic impact and influence on my childhood as well as others. And it's one of those movies where you're just like, we will never see stuff like this again. They just will not dare to give you anything like this. You know, I also wonder if like this movie would get rejected by woke culture or anything like that. Like, I just wonder if you are able to tell a story like this and not have it go through the political lens.
I actually wrote this for you. It's so funny. I love it. The reboot. a few months ago, there was a reboot auction where they were bidding war for this. Netflix, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. Someone bought this, right? But I wrote, tell me this is not going to be Falkor, the voice of Liam Neeson, and Atreyu will now be some kind of a female protagonist. I think that's what they're going to do, and that's how they change it. And it has to be Liam Neeson, of course, because who else can you cast as a friendly voice of a mythical beast? If it's Liam Neeson, I'll be hysterical. But do we need that, though, Rob? I don't know if this, like you're saying, is going to translate unless they wow you.
I think the point of the reboot, or a reboot in general, is just for a director to give sort of their take on how they perceive this book to be. I'm sure somebody read this book and was like, oh, I would have done this differently. And this is their opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. Will it make the movie better? I don't know if that's even the goal. I think a director just wants to just challenge the status quo and just say, hey, why don't you look at it from this perspective? Maybe I can tie a few loose ends that didn't make sense from the original, yada, yada, yada. Everybody has reasons, right? And as far as getting a remake, I think where a little bit of the disrespect comes in is the use of the name. You don't want to come off as a carbon copy. You don't want to be known as someone who wrote a movie that is very similar to another and then reap the benefits. So, right, you make a direct reboot, but then at the same time, then it's like, well, I'm so sick of reboots and remakes, come up with your own ideas. And it's like, well, I can, but then you're just going to compare it and say, oh, it's so similar, you're a hack. So what do, right? If I got a remake to this, the only thing that I would hope that they do is still use practical effects and just and just make that translate better on screen, so you have more options on how you execute attacks and adventures and you know, sort of that, you know, edge of your seat moments or whatever. CGI also gives you a lot of options to try and do something magical with this movie, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the story that a reboot would make it better. So, I mean,
what if anything, why don't you just make the book into a movie? Clearly, because it's completely different, and the movie is half of the first half of the book. So, I mean, they're doing it with Harry Potter, which I honestly don't know if I think I would want so soon after
No, I hear
that.
you.
Maybe do a faithful adaptation of the book.
I wish that I had more knowledge of the business side of things when creating films. I think when it comes down to who's credited and where that money goes when the product is finished. So if you do a straight adaptation, you don't necessarily get writer's credit, at least as much as you would like if you want to, you know, refurbish that kitchen. So it's just true. This idea of like, I want this movie to say this came from me, as opposed to I'm just doing somebody else's work. So that comes to play when you're creating stuff. I'm sure everybody would love a straight adaptation, but you're still giving all of the power to the person who wrote it first and not really capitalizing on your own imagination and interpretation of what you read. So I think there's a business side to it.
Of course,
from these
definitely.
decisions. But yeah, you know, if you know, the movie industry had endless, unlimited amounts of money, I'm sure we'd get a lot of these types of remakes where we can get authentic adaptations and such. And yeah, the only thing that I for sure know will happen is that it won't be as dark. And that to me is like the land before time of it all. Like, I'm sorry, I don't need it to be a musical when it comes out, and I don't need it to be Care Bearish. I want it to be dark and messed up and unfair, just like the NeverEnding Story. The shopkeeper said it himself. This book, your books are safe. This one is not. This movie has no business being safe ever.
Ooh.
So that is my take. And if the moment they do it, they shit all over what this movie or this book and movie is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be safe.
Especially since, like we mentioned in Dragonheart, continuations being so kiddie-ish, and then what they evidently did with NeverEnding Story 3, which...
Oh my god.
Looks like it looks like a nightmare.
Whose first movie? Very first film, I want to say, or his very first film, like major film, Jack Black. He was the leader of those bullies. I forget the name of the bullies.
Even the lead looked...
Well, the lead is the Free Willy kid.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So there you go. There you go.
Mhm.
If that happens, maybe we'll get this. Atreyu was supposed to have green skin and blue hair, and they actually tested it out, Rob. But I guess the rain wouldn't have worked when you're being forced to do scenes over and over and over again for 8 hours at a time. So that being said, loved this movie beyond what I could have even imagined a rewatch being. So long, 25 years or more for me, possibly. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That being said, Rob, do you have any recommendations for us?
Rob's recommendations.
Yes, I do. So this list is not as old as I thought it would be. And what I mean by that is, like, I like to sort of dig real deep to give you some underrated gems or movies that are not well known that should get more attention should you like this movie. But this list is a little common. I think everybody knows most of these movies, but if you're listening and there happened to be one on this list that you missed when you were a kid, check it out. If you enjoyed this movie, I have 3 recommendations that are a little on the darker, grittier side of things, and I think in similarity, you might like these. The first one is The Last Unicorn. While it is animated, I think that its dark tone and theme would serve you well to, you know, enjoy that type of movie as if you enjoyed NeverEnding Story. The other one is the Dark Crystal series, mostly for its puppetry and its sort of darker tone and its sort of like execution of how the creatures look and things like that. So yeah, I think that would be a great watch. The last one that I have is The Page Master with Macaulay Culkin, and I just say that in its relation with books in general.
I feel like it is like almost, I don't know if it was also a book too, but I always thought that was kind of like okay, we want to be like the NeverEnding Story. So yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, a lot of the same outline and storyline and story sort of came into the Page Master, the library, the sudden transition into the book, the shopkeeper, and just sort of reliving those old classics.
Yep.
And it was darker, I thought, in my opinion, with what we got. Also, great voice of, so there are 3 books that travel with Macaulay on his journey, and one of them is fantasy. And the fantasy book is voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, who does an amazing job playing her. I gotta say this one joke. I will never forget this. I love this joke so much. It's so adult. They come across Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's mansion or house or something. And Fantasy looks at the mailbox and it reads Jekyll and Hyde. And she goes, must be a duplex. I just thought that was so funny. Like, who knows about duplexes? But it's like, I don't know why. You know what? I don't own this movie because it came on all the time. I always had access to it. Yes. And, you know, I also recorded it on VHS, so I had no reason to buy it. But I need to order this movie.
It better not be out of print. You know how that's happening.
But it must be a duplex. That was the line for me. It was so funny. So
we'll have to do that soon then, in general.
Yes, of course. So, if you did not like NeverEnding Story and you have your reasons, maybe it is too dark. Maybe this is a movie you can't show your kids. But you want that same childlike adventure. So, I chose The Goonies. While The Goonies is a little dark, it's not as dark. You know, there's still a lot of moments that lifts you back up, gives you a lot of the happy feels and the funny, and it keeps you more lighthearted than anything. Yes. So The Goonies, and I also said E.T. E.T. is just from the emotional aspect of NeverEnding Story, but again, more childlike wonder and happiness throughout the movie. So that is my recommendation. And then the last one is just sort of the adventure side of it all, the journey, the road trip of it all, Flight of the Navigator. I haven't seen this movie in a while, but I think just Atreyu meeting all of these characters and just sort of just the travel journey of it, and him, like, I want to say that he was a runaway, I can't remember, but similar things that are happening in this, and it's for the underdog. So I recommend Flight of the Navigator just for a different sort of tone than NeverEnding Story. So there you go.
I got more excited each pick because those are fantastic, especially if you want to see horses being drowned in liquid of some kind. That's Last Unicorn. So you get the whole going into the sea. And to your point, Rob, I just saw this out of the corner of my eye. That teeny weeny, to continue our multiverse of this summer, the one who played that snail guy, he was the Tin Man puppet in Return to Oz.
You're kidding.
That's his neck. And evidently Yoda in shots of Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back.
Wow, never would have guessed that.
We have the Tin Man himself as well as the Snail Man.
Look at that.
So, Rob, where can people find you when you're not hanging out over here?
I am currently journaling my movie-going experience by doing short reels of my rating every single movie that I watch, whether it's a rewatch or a first watch. It could be for my collection, streaming, at the movies. No matter what it is, I am going to review it. And it's tied to my Letterboxd account where most, people review movies that they watch. So you can catch those small reels of quick reviews on the Rob the Movie Geek or the Unique Geek. I think it may be under, but Rob the Movie Geek you can find on Instagram, all one word.
And you'll find that in the description box below. Matter of fact, we just did one where Rob asked me a question, and it's posted on that page. So check that out. Of course, if you're following us on Instagram, I'm going to share it. So please follow us on there. If there's anyone out there that's recently joined us, or if you've been listening from the beginning, if you are able to go to your favorite podcast app store, honestly, I hate to say it, but it seems like Rob's Apple is the one that kind of counts in the game at the moment. If you're an Apple listener, would you say? Like, that's the one, I guess, really calls attention more to the show. If you would take the time, write us a quick, honest review. We would love to hear that. Of course, we will talk about it on the show. We will announce it. We'll dance. But it would extremely help. I think we're up to 13. And I would love if we can get those up just a little.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that with your review or just feedback, it really shapes the show into what most of the viewers enjoy. And we are starting to get a little bit of that through Instagram, and we love every comment that you guys send. Sharing those thoughts really helps really give the audience exactly what it is that they want. And right now, we are just having fun. But what kind of show would this be if it was really done in a way that really spoke to the folks who are actually listening? So should you have suggestions on movies that we should watch, write a review on Apple and let us know.
Ooh, yeah.
Let us know on Instagram. But also, if there are certain types of movies that you want to hear more about, if you feel that this show could go in a different direction as far as like the type of things that we talk about, things like that, like the moment you guys give us those things that really click with you, we will give you more of that. And through that comes with our, with the reviews that you post. So any feedback is great. And it does help the word of mouth and for the show to get exposed and extend to other people. So if you happen to write one, thank you. If you've already written one, we appreciate you. So yeah.
Beautifully said. It's so true. Thank you for that. And matter of fact, our vocal listeners seem to be over on Thundercats recently. So you guys are really battling for the top of the radical pile. No, I'm just joking. We love you both. Yeah, we noticed a lot of Thundercats fans are interacting. So thank you for that. Thank you for crossing over to the main show. And thank you for being here. Radical Retro Rewind Podcast, one word, on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and of course, we will be back next Friday with a new episode. And thank you, Rob.
Of course, I had a great time.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.